Eve edition of KTN Prime right here on KTN News. We want to get into an in-depth analysis of some of the big stories that made headlines in the year 2019, some of the issues that Kenyans were talking about. We want to start with the Building Bridges initiative, something that Kenyans across the country waited for. Since that March 9, 2018 handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga throughout the year 2019, when the report was finally released, there has been some murmurs. A lot of Kenyans wondering whether it was worth the wait, wondering whether we are going to go into a constitutional referendum. I want to pick the minds of my panel right here with me. I have with me KTN News senior political reporter Duncan Haemba, senior reporter at The Standard, Rosalind Obala, and political analyst Javas Bigambo. Javas, let me begin with you. BBI, was it worth the hype, in your opinion?
Well, Mr. Kitili, tonight, as we sit in these chairs, we're just about 2 hours shy of setting foot in the new year. And we are replete with recollections and reminiscences of events of the year now in review. And one on the charts is the BBI.
Right.
There have been fears and anxieties of the said BBI report prior to its release. And even the day of its release and after, it has continued to elicit mixed reactions from various quarters, whether political or apolitical, ordinary Kenyans, etc. And one thing that is interesting is that in all this, I hold the view that politicians or the political intelligentsia in this country operates at 10 steps ahead of ordinary Kenyans. Today, when you look at the issues contained in that report, ostensibly tethered to the 9-point agenda following the March 9th handshake of 2018,
all right,
one would be forgiven to think that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 does not have clear provisions on issues that are contained in the BBI report or in the 9-point agenda. Now, I posit that the issue here, as we look at the BBI report, is not actually the issue of the limitations of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 on whether it's issues of graft, issues of electoral justice or injustice, etc. And some have billed the BBI report as an implementation mechanism of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Trouble is that now some quarters are looking at the BBI report as a political sledgehammer to try and crush the ambitions of others. Personally, I look at it.
You sound like you have been opposed to the BBI from the word go.
My only fear is that the BBI report seems to be political confetti for me. And it seems just to be stirring up some political interests for certain politicians and not serving the critical interests of Kenyans. If it was so, if the BBI report is hoped to, say, cure matters corruption, don't we have the Leadership and Integrity Act tied to Chapter 6 of the Constitution, etc.? So I think as we look at, and I want to welcome the BBI report, whichever form it will come, that one thing that that report should help is to help and cure the bad character of our politicians. Because that's where the problem is.
Rosalind,
lack of political goodwill.
Yes. Rosalind, you have been covering the BBI since March 9th, 2018, when the handshake happened at the steps of Harambee House. Talking to politicians and stakeholders, in your opinion, what do you think has been their motivation in this BBI thing? A lot has been said, but what do you think is their motivation?
Actually, there was so much hype before the BBI report was released, because if you listen to the politicians, there were those who were feeling that this report was actually going to address the issues that have been ailing them, including the leadership vacuum that has been there, where we have the winner take it all, and this one was going to bring an issue where there was going to be that inclusivity and inequality. But when the BBI report came out, and if you listen to some of the leaders who are speaking, especially those who are opposed to it, they were like, this report was going to cure or create positions for specific individuals. But they were not reading exactly the entire report, because it was a 9-point agenda. Now, when it came out, what it did not give us is the mechanism and the guidelines on how to implement what they had actually cited in the report. Because if you look at past reports like the TJRC report, the Ndungu report, and the others, there were actually guidelines on how to implement them. They will even give a lifespan of maybe 1 month, 1 year, and all that. With the BBI, we are only seeing recommendations. We are not seeing how they will be done. And that's why the conversation has now turned into, do we do it a parliamentary initiative, or do we go back to the people? Because if you look at, let's say, the system of governance, we have a pure presidential system. Now, when you have a report that is talking about the position of a prime minister introducing the official leader of government business, official leader of opposition, and that is not in the structure of a pure presidential system, then we are touching some sections that are actually protected in the Constitution. So that is where the conversation is. But those who are opposed to the BBI, or who are not comfortable with this report, will tell you we only need policies and legislative framework to address these proposals that have been there. Okay. And that is why we've had these two leaders talking about, can we take it back to Wanjiku? Can this report be actually a people-driven process? Which now begs the question, the money that was used, that we actually don't know how much has been drained into this report, and the months that this team took to collect reports, and we have now been told the term has been extended indefinitely, that we don't know it's for how long. Then are we also going to dig into the public coffers again to fund these people, or what we were given was actually not the BBI report we expected?
All right. Duncan, the BBI was cited as a magic formula to, to bring inclusivity into Kenyan politics. We are seeing arguably more division over the report itself. Do you think the report or the process is achieving that goal of bringing inclusivity to Kenyan politics?
We'll have to admit that being what it is, then it is what it is. It was a political process.
Speaking like Javas began.
It was, maybe I've been influenced, but not radicalized.
But he's not
it was
a
a political process,
right.
And we are looking at the political chess game at play, whose stakes are very, very high. You will recall that there was a speed at which the report was supposed to come out, yes. And then there were issues. And then when the report was ready, political daggers were drawn, battle lines were clearly drawn. Then there was that lull to an extent that people are wondering what has happened, because the task force had said that they want to present the report to the president and ODM party leader at the earliest opportunity.
Yes.
Then there was a month-long lull. Until now, everybody was asking, where is this BBI report? There is that school of thought that says that given the battle lines that had already been drawn, it may be forced them to retreat. And there's a card the trump card that nobody, whoever is wielding, is just waiting for the opportune time to strike. That one can be qualified by the fact that the president has extended the term of the task force without gazetting the new terms of reference. Because when we had the initial one, we were told this is the team, this is their mandate, yes. Which was concluded. So when you extend and there are no new terms of references, what does that mean? Clearly, there is something that is at play, and I think they are just sizing each other in what football would say. Each team is trying to size each other, and maybe it's just a matter of time, right, before we'll know what exactly BBI was all about. Remember, 2 hours ago in his NDA speech, the president has touched about that. He has said 2020 is here, then we'll ensure that we'll enhance the building bridges of brotherhood. Now there's a new term. It's not bridges of initiative, no, but of brotherhood. Of course, we know what that entails, but I think whatever is at play is just a matter of time. It will come to the fore. I think the team was forced to retract, okay, given the battle lines that have already been drawn and positions taken. But now, for the sake of cohesion, right, now they had to retreat. But I think with the fullness of time, the real BBI initiative will come to the table.
Will come out. Yes. As we wind up on this, Rosalind, Kenyans have had a lot of explanations about the BBI. Is it an important issue for Kenyans?
I think it is an important issue because if you look at it and what Bigambe had talked about, that actually what are being cited actually in the Constitution. It's only that the question should be, have we actually implemented the Constitution to the letter, which we haven't. we have not completed implementing the 2010 Constitution, and some of the sections that are actually being cited are those that are actually remaining that they have not implemented. Now, if you look at the 9-point agenda, apart from the system of governance, they've also touched about devolution. When you talk about a speaker nominating a deputy governor, already you've touched the structure of devolution, which cannot actually go through the parliamentary way. It has to go to the people. So now it begs the question, did our Kenyans actually engage as the team talked about? Because they said we reached 7,000 Kenyans. 70,000? 7,000. And what is the population do we have? Our population 47. Is almost 47. Yeah. So even if a fraction of it, have we actually reached the Kenyans to say that this is what Kenyans want? Yeah. Just the other day we saw TIFA release a report, and they were saying 69% of Kenyans do not know about the BBI. So it means that even as we have a conversation, the Wanjikus do not know what we are discussing. Yeah. So that again boils down to, this is a document for the political elites. At the end of the day, it is them sharing their positions, and the conversations we are hearing is the winner take it all. We want a win-win situation, not a winner take it all. Right. So already it is about settling scores, giving positions, and ensuring everybody is comfortable, only using the word that it's about inclusivity and inequality. All right.
Javas, where do you see this process going as we usher in 2020? 2022 general election is around the corner. Is there any danger in having these two processes, overlap?
There is no danger. There is no danger. When you look at our political socialization, we love volatile politics, and that's where we are headed. We are headed into the deep sea of politics. We are headed into the waves of succession politics. And the way you look at it, whether those who are diametrically opposed to the BBI initiative or those who are embracing it without even deep thought, you see that it's a question of managing the succession process. When I look at those who are fighting the BBI report, even before it came to the fore, you realize that there is the political agility of the proverbial Greek warrior, Achilles. People going for each other's jugular. And that is the state of affairs right now. There are hidden daggers, and people are holding doves with one arm or one hand. So we are trying to play the politics of musical chairs to Kenyans. Why is it that when you look at the substance of the BBI report, you wonder whether it is actually those big brains that sat to draft that report? For example, if at all that report were to be serious as it was billed, and with about 10 billion Kenyan shillings, set aside for it, yeah, I would have expected to see more flesh in it. Flesh to do with addressing the kind of violence that women face at the polls. I would have expected to see how the issue of constricting budgetary allocations to arms of government, example the judiciary, being taken care of. I would have expected to see how we can work around audit issues to see how we can constrict and enhance our own graft. For example, I have not heard anybody even talk about a thorough audit on the issues of the Galana Kulalu irrigation scheme, where lots of Kenyan billions went down the drain. So I look at the BBI initiative, or the process, or the Brotherhood initiative as it's being now baptized, as a well-intentioned, cockeyed idea that soothes political egos of the elites, but does not serve the primary interests of ordinary Kenyans.
What is your prediction? Are we going to go into a referendum?
Well, now you seem to apportion me the quotas of the family of prophecy. I come from none. But I would say that we are going to see now full throttle politics in 2020, even as we move towards 2021 later on. All right. But my fear is this: who is going to suffer for it? I doubt if it's the politicians.
Rosalind, do you have a prediction? What is your crystal ball telling you? Are Kenyans going to go into a referendum?
I think we'll have to go into a referendum, because if you look at the report and you look at some of the sections that have actually been touched, when you touch about representation, it's a section protected under the Article 255. If you talk about the system of government, it is protected. If you talk about devolution, it is protected. So these are some of the sections that you cannot just actually bring them to Parliament and say, let's close our eyes and pass it. And again, this is a time that politicians must sit down and come up with a referendum act, which we don't have, because the way we are, we cannot even conduct a referendum.
Duncan, what is your prediction?
Yes, borrowing what I've seen happen in this country that I've witnessed in 2005, I was alive. It was 2 years to a general election, and we had a very volatile referendum, and it took place. And remember, look at the premise on which the BBI process was actually assembled. It was all about closing ranks following a very divisive and high voltage 2017 election, in which glaring gaps were seen, and they thought the handshake is the best prescription that maybe will be the silver bullet to end the ever divisive elections. So we know that there are actors behind the scenes who are behind the BBI process, the initiative, and I think they are the same persons that now they want it to roll to the same phase. So I think resources will be availed from wherever they'll come from, and we'll have a referendum just like in 2005, which will be a dress rehearsal for the succession politics in 2022.
All right.